we want to look at this. It's interesting, when you think about, how it is that people think about Passover and these times, and Exodus chapter 12. Um, for me, thinking about, how people think about Passover and when to keep it, and the days and all of this, how to do it. Um, you know, I always have to look at the Torah and what the Torah says in relation to the Passover to be able to understand when it is or what it is that it's saying, right? And so when I want to be able to determine how or when I do a thing, I have to be able to look to the scriptures, the Torah specifically, the law, statutes, and commands, to be able to do that. And so from a principle standpoint, if I want to know how to do something, or if I should be doing something to begin with, I got to go to the Torah in order to see that. And the Torah got to be my foundation for doing it. So when we look, many people don't know because they don't have any they don't have a foundation in these things where they found out about being Israel and then just started doing the things and there's no connection to the history of things and the way in which people did things. But when we look at the history of people doing these feast days, there's people who don't have it figured out in terms of when to do these days, in terms of when to do it. Do I do it on the beginning of the 14th? Do I do it at the end of the 14th? Is the 13th involved in the situation? The 15th is the day. Well, when do I do the things? But when you look over here, we're able to see from a Torah perspective exactly what to do. It's spelled out for us step by step, and we just looked at it. And so when we look over here, let's just look at this, right? When we look over here, looking at verse 3. When we look at verse 3, it says, let's see here, scroll down. This is easy, right? On the 10th day of the month, you take a lamb, right? So we know right there, on the 10th day, we're supposed to go out and find us a lamb. We're not going to do this at nighttime. We're going to do it at daytime. That's when we could go out and see. It's going to be easy for us to find it because it's going to be daytime. We can look at it. We can inspect it because we have to inspect it, right? We have to determine whether this lamb is appropriate for our household because that's part of our situation according to the house of his father, right? We got to know, we got to be able to inspect this thing and see if it's too small. Is the thing too small? Right? Or is it too big? You do all of this stuff, right? You take the lamb, that perfect one. And if we scroll down, right, we say on verse 6, and you shall keep it until the 14th day on the same new moon or of the same month. So you took it on the 10th and then you keep it until. So we want to look at
why he was so specific to say of the same month, basically, of the same. Like he could have just said on the 14th day.
Yeah. So, but that would have been non-specific, but he's giving us specific instructions. Right. And so I've seen people play with this word right here. Until people don't play with this word. Right. So when we look, I don't want to play with any words. I want to just look at the thing, right? And so when we think about this, right, it says so first of all, let's think about some things, right? We already said the lamb's not going to be found. You're not looking for the lamb at nighttime. So we're not talking about the 9th at even. We're not talking about the 9th at even because that's nighttime. So we're not talking about going into the 9th day. We're talking about the day part of here. Let's say this too, because something that we have to be able to understand when we're thinking about these things is that a day actually has 4 parts to it. A calendar day. Let's say that a calendar day has 4 parts to it. There's 4 parts. There's the Erev, which is the mixture of darkness and light, where light is going away and darkness is overcoming. Erev. And then you have the night, or the Lila, right? Where you have the night where that's only darkness, right? So you have Erev and Lila, you have even and night, right? And then you have Boker, right? Where you have another mixture. Boker and Erev look the same. You know that they're different because one is night growing and the other one is day growing. So Boker, the light is coming, right? And then you have, when light has all the way come, you have day. So when we think about a day, there's 4 components to it. And so when we talk about the idea of finding this lamb on the 10th day, we can eliminate Erev and Lila from the situation, where now we only have the day part to think about, because we're not going to be going out and searching, investigating all of this stuff during the night part, right? We're going to do that in the day part. And Boker, like, we're just waking up. We getting up. We getting ready. You know, we're getting our situation together. We're wiping the coals out of our eyes and all of that. So we only have the day part to do those things. All right. So you keep it, and then you keep it all the way. And then where it tells you specifically, it says you shall keep it until the 14th day and kill it in the evening. And so it knows that inspiration knows that there's 4 parts to a calendar day. And so it didn't want you to have to try to figure out what part it wanted you to kill it. So it tells you specifically. It says until the 14th, and you're killing it at the even. So in order to keep it until the 14th and then kill it, it would have to be, let's see here. When we, so it would have to be the 14th at even. So it couldn't be. I'm saying that the people who do Passover and include the 13th in any way is it can't be according to the Torah, because we're saying that it's the 14th at even, which would be going into the next day, which would be the 15th day. And so for somebody to try to make the case about the beginning of the 14th, which would be the 13th at even.
You would kill the lamb on the 13th for it to be ready on the 14th.
Right. But the Torah don't make no mention of the 13th. It don't say 13 at all. Only 14. And so we can actually take 13 and move it to the side and never think about it again, because if it's saying the 14th day at even, that's putting us at the end part of the day. But as we go forward, we can continue to understand that what it's talking about is actually the end part of the day. But I wanted to look at again, we look at this word until, because people do kind of play games with this word over here. Verse 6, let's see here. Until 5704, which is odd, which says, let's see, it's used as a preposition, adverb, or conjunction, especially with a preposition, as far or long or much as, whether of space is translated as even, unto, during, while, until. See, even we look at this, right, if it's used to mean during, while, or until. Like if I said I'm going to sit here until 5 o'clock, that kind of means when it becomes 5 o'clock, I'm going to not sit here anymore. Like until is the cutoff point. But it also means during or while. This word odd, right? And so it has these various types of situations where it can be something that signifies an end to something, or it could also mean something that is inclusive of the thing, all at the same time.
Until 5 o'clock don't mean you're going to get up at exactly 5 o'clock.
It don't necessarily mean that. It could mean that that's the time that I'm going to maybe think about getting up. Maybe I'm going to get straight up, or maybe I won't get up before that, but I could get up after that, but I don't got to get up right at that time. I'm saying that when we think about this word over here in the Hebrew, it's not something that's just cut and dry, just black or white.
On or off.
Yeah, it's not about on or off, right? There seems to be kind of a inclusive aspect to it that we have to be able to consider when we think about this. And so when we look at this from a standpoint of the Hebrew, there's a vast range of definition that can be put into this little 2-letter word over here. And so when it says, and you shall keep it up until the 14th day, and the whole congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, we have to be able to understand what it is that that's talking about. But it helps us, right? Because we see that word odd used again a few verses down, where it helps us to see the inclusivity of it. If we look at read verse 10 for us.
10.
Hold on, let me pull it down. Right there.
And do not leave.
Hold on, read 9 and 10.
All right. Exodus 12:9.
Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in fire, its head with its legs and its inward parts. And do not leave of it until morning, and what remains of it until morning you are to burn with fire.
Okay, now wait a second. It said, do not leave of it until morning. Some verses might say, you shall let nothing of it remain until morning. So in other words, don't let none be there when morning comes. Right? It says, don't let there be anything that's left over until morning. But then the next part says that what does remain of it until morning, burn it. So am I supposed to have it all gone before morning gets there? Or when morning gets there, should I just burn it? But I can't have anything in the morning if I ate it all up before morning even got there. So we're able to see by its usage in this context that is something that's inclusive, where the point is it don't want you to keep it. You use all that you're going to use and burn the rest up. But the morning, it says, if there of what remains of it until morning, burn that.
That's Booker.
Morning is Boker, yes. Right? And so I'm saying that we could look at this in the English and say, don't leave of it until morning, or don't let any of it remain till morning, would mean that I'm going to eat it all at night and I'm not going to let the leftovers see morning. But in the very same verse is telling you, if you have leftovers in the morning, you take those leftovers and you burn them. That was verse 10. Where do we read to? 13? Here, read 12. Read 12.
And I shall pass through the land of Mitzrayim on that night, and shall strike all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim, both man and beast, and on all the mighty ones of Mitzrayim I shall execute judgment.
Okay. Okay, so all of this stuff was happening. This stuff happened, he said, pass through at night. This stuff is happening at night, where it's dark, at night, right? Right there. That's at night. And so you have instructions for what you would do in the daytime part, in the evening part, in the night part. It's going to be happening. The things is going down at the nighttime part. And then we also seen what we was going to do in the morning part, where so far was just burning what you had left over from the night before, if you did have anything left over. But what we do see here is important part is that you have your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, your staff in your hand, and you eating with haste. And so you're ready. You're not you're not waiting for there's not time in between. This is all consecutive. These things go from one thing to the next. So you take the lamb, you burn it between the evenings, which when you think about when you think about what that's talking about, I need my eraser. When you think about what that's talking about, where it says when you should kill it between the two evens, if we was to think about the cycle of the sun, let me make a little. I'll make a little picture, and then I'll share it over here with you. We know from a historical standpoint that when the time that the lamb was slain was between the height of the sun and is going down. So in here, throughout the day, in here was when you killed it. Right? You killed the lamb in this portion of the day. So between the height of the sun and the setting of the sun was a time where you killed it and you got it all ready, and then you got ready to eat it, but you had to have it killed and the blood on the doorpost and all that before night, because at nighttime the death angel was coming. Right? So you had to do all of that stuff. You had to do all of that stuff before eventime came. So again, we're talking about the 14th day. It's daytime and the sun's going down. You killing it, you preparing it, you doing all you doing so that you're ready to eat it and have the blood put on the doorpost before the sun gets down here at nighttime. Because when it's nighttime, you don't know when that death angel is coming. So you got to have all that stuff done. And then when you think about the other part, the morning, right? When you think about the other part, you got that. Here, let me try to. You got the sun going, all the way around, and you got to be with your shoes on your feet and your staff in your hand, and the food been done ate already. And if you got any left over, you're gonna burn it over at morning, because when the sun come all the way up, it's time to go. It's time to go. We didn't read that part. We're gonna read that.
Get the women out.
But you have this time here to prepare it and cook it and have everything ready, because in this night part, the death angel's coming. And then in the morning part, the only thing you got to do in the morning is burn leftovers if you have any, so that you could be out. But you have this kind of a quick time, turnover time for you to go ahead and do that. And another thing that we have to think about here, let's see. Let's read some more so we could talk about all of this here. Let's read we read down to 13. Let's pick back up on 14. Start reading at 14 there.
And this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh throughout your generations. Celebrate it as a festival and everlasting law. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Indeed, on the first day you cause leaven to cease from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that shall be cut off from Israel. And on the first day it is a set apart gathering, and on the 7th day You have done a set apart gathering. No work at all is done on them. Only that which is eaten by every being, that alone is prepared by you. And you shall guard the festival of Matzot. For on the same day I brought your divisions out of the land of Mitzrayim, and you shall guard this day throughout your generations, an everlasting law.
All right, stop right there. And so now we have mention of this 7-day period. The 7-day period that you were supposed to be eating unleavened bread. And so again, if we think about the idea of 7 days of eating unleavened bread, and we eat our unleavened bread with our lamb that we killed on the 14th day at even. If we think about, again, the 7-day period, we can't be adding 13 to this 7-day period, because the first day is the 15th and the last day is the 21st day. If we done added 13 to the mix, we got way more than 7-day period. So we got to exclude 13 out of the mix.
Because you have to get the 11 out on the 13th in order to be ready for the 14th. So you, at least
well, you would be eating your unleavened bread on the 13th with your lamb that you killed, or on the 14th even. You would be eating it in this other day. Like, it's too many days if you only got a 7-day period where you're supposed to eat the unleavened bread. And so again, when we think about this whole idea of when you're doing these things at even, like the new day is starting when it's Erev. And so if we was to say that this is the 14th at even, at Erev, and this is the beginning of the new day over here, so we're leaving 14 behind, and the 15th really is the day. And he said over here in verse that we read over here, verse 15. Wait, let's hold on. Let me get my cursor straight over here. In verse 14, he said, and this day shall become to you a remembrance. The day that he's talking about is the 15th day of Abib. That's the day that he's talking about. And this day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival throughout your generation. Celebrate as a festival, as an everlasting law. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. He's talking about the first day, the 15th day, and the 7th day, which is the 21st day of the month. If we add 14 to that, that's 8 days. This is rudimentary right here. This is very simple things right here. If we count 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, that's 7 days. If we add 14 to that, that's 8, or 7.5. But he said 7 days. So we can only count from 15 to 21. That's 7 days. So we have to get to the place of understanding, again, looking at this from a Torah perspective. The Passover is not a whole day. It's a moment in time. It's a portion. It's a portion of a day that's in preparation for the Memorial Day, which is the 15th of Abib. It's prep day, right? In the week is Friday, right? Getting us ready for the thing that's the most important part is the Exodus. Let's get out of here.
The Exodus isn't delayed by a whole day from Passover.
No, we got to forget about 13, right? Because they were ready with their staffs in their hand and their shoes on their feet, and they hurried up and ate.
Because they left out of there.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah.
And then the sun didn't go back around and set.
Yeah.
And then the 15th happened.
If I add 13 to the situation, you know, if I'm with haste now, it says eat with haste. So it take a long time to kill the thing and to kill it and to cook it. Yeah, and you talking about a whole lamb you cooking. That thing took hours to cook. So they sat up here and killed it in here, and they had to have it ready because at midnight, the death angel was coming. And so they had to have all of that stuff done with the blood on the doorpost, eat the food, and you ready to go.
Next day.
By the time the daytime comes, you're out of here. But we're saying that if this is 14th at even, but if this is 13th at even going down, you got a whole day you could chill, you could relax. You don't got to worry about
the bread rise. You don't have to worry about that.
You can take your time because you got a whole day in between.
Yep. And then you leave on the 15th.
Yeah, and then and so 15th is always the day. That's the day. So if I say 13th at even, now I got this whole day. What do I got to be in haste for? I can take my time, right? But that's not it. It's a rush to get done. I got to hurry up and get this food done. I got to get this blood up on the doorpost, and I got to have my shoes ready because whenever that sun hit, I got to go. And then I got to burn that food. That if I got any left over, I got to burn it. I got one thing to do when the day break. Burn the food. Daybreak, I'm out of here. And so again, it's giving you this timeline and it's showing you what to do starting from the 14th at even. Entering into that first day of unleavened bread and what you need to be doing. And then it gives you what's happening all at night and in the morning, and then go time. And so when we look over here, it spells it out for you. And then again, we look at it from looking at verse 14 and 15, where it enters in this idea of this 7 days, where it's telling you, you know, you read down to, here, read 18.
In the first month, on the 14th day of the new moon, in the evening you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the new moon in the evening.
Okay, let's stop right there. So if we say that you're supposed to eat unleavened bread for 7 days, and it's telling you right there in the first month on the 14th day of the new moon in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the new moon in the evening. How many days is that? Well, it tells you right here, 7 days, right? But we already know if we include 14 in our count, that's not 7 days, it's 8 or 7.5. But it don't say 7.5 days. So it helps us to understand a few things over here. One thing that it helps us to understand when a day begins, a calendar day. At even. It tells you right there. In the first month on the 14th day of the new moon in even. That's the beginning right there. That's the mixture of the day that it is going into the day that it's about to be. But it helps us to understand that we only dealing with 7 days because it tells you right here. Right? 14th day at even. Eat unleavened bread until the 21st day, the new moon in the evening. From even to even. 7 days. And so again, we're getting this thing that's giving us a historical record of what's happening, but it also is giving us the Torah. It's giving us the laws. It's showing us, how we're supposed to think about things, how we're supposed to do things. It's teaching us about the calendar over here. It's helping us to understand that when we think about Feast of Unleavened Bread, that the thing that the most important aspect of that is that first day of unleavened bread. The Passover is just a sacrifice that we're making for the festival that is a memorial forever. We don't got two festivals, not the Passover festival and the Feast of Unleavened Bread festival.
Passover was the beginning of
the
Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Right. And so the scriptures teaching us this, as is given it to us. Here, keep on reading. Let's see. You read from 19 there.
All right. For 7 days, no leaven is to be found in your house. For if anyone eats what is leavened, that same being shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether sojourner or native of the land. Do not eat that which is leavened in all your dwellings. You are to eat unleavened bread. And Moshe called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, go out and take lambs for yourselves according to your clans and slay the Pesach. And you shall take a bunch of the hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin and strike the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning.
Okay, stop right there. So now again, we're seeing the idea of the haste that's taking place, and we're removing this idea of any parts of the 13th day, because over here you take this lamb, you take this lamb, you kill it, and then you shut in. You're shut in. Don't go nowhere. Don't go out of the door until morning. Right? Because morning you was going to go out here and burn this lamb if you got any leftovers. Okay, keep on going.
And Yahweh shall pass on to smite the Mitzrites, and shall see the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts. And Yahweh shall pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your house to smite you. And you shall guard this word as a law for you and your sons forever. And it shall be when you come to the land which Yahweh gives you, as he promised, that you shall guard this service. And it shall be when your children say to you, what does this service mean to you? Then you shall say, it is the Pesach, slaughtering of Yahweh, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Mitzrayim when he smote the Mitzrites and delivered our households. And the people bowed their heads and did obeisance. And the children of Israel went away and did so, and Yahweh had commanded Moshe and Aaron, so they did.
Okay, so there we have this breakdown, this giving of the instructions, this telling of what was to be done with the Passover, right? With Feast of Unleavened Bread. So it tells you what to do, and then the next part, it tells you what happened. But first, it tells you what it is that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. And so when we look at the Torah, is very cut and dry as to how to do it. When we think about the various arguments that people make in terms of when or why to do this or that, you cannot get from the Torah anything other than having your Passover Seder meal at the 14th at even. When you look at even being the going into the 15th, it can't be no other way based on what the Torah gives us. If you want to look to some other Bible references, you can do that. But from Torah, it don't give you that. When we look to see what Yeshua did, we have to be able to understand the spiritual significance of Yeshua and who he is. If Yeshua is the Passover lamb, which he is, then he is killed at the time when the Passover lamb was killed, which is on the 14th at even. And so he couldn't both be the Passover lamb and also then eat it when he was supposed to eat it, because he's the Passover lamb. So he did it. So Yeshua did the Passover early, so that whenever he goes and is killed for the redemption of Israel, he is killed at the time when the Passover lamb was killed. And so he had to sit up here and explain all of this to his disciples, and he did it a day early. And so if you want to say, as people do, they're doing Yeshua's memorial, okay, yeah, I'll give you that. All right. But we can't look back in Torah and say that the Torah instructs for us to do the Passover that day early, because it doesn't.
And we know a group that does Yeshua Memorial, and then they do Passover. We knew two groups that do it that way.
Yeah,
they do Yeshua's
yes.
Memorial when he did it, and then they do Passover the next
Yeah,
night.
they covering all the bases over
now, one of the things that when we've done the research on it, that we saw was that the Romans would execute Israelites when the people was going up to the temple to make their Passover sacrifices, so they wouldn't have an insurrection.
Mm-hmm.
All the people are coming together for the pilgrimage feast, so the Romans crucified, Israelites, had them hanging.
Yeah.
So the people would see that and then kind of be demoralized or whatever, so they wouldn't rise up against the Romans.
Wicked people. Yeah. So there's all types of historical record to look and see if we want to look at these things. But my thing is that we have to be able to look at what the Torah, first of all, what the Torah instructs for us to do, and then second of all, understand what it is that Yeshua did for us, which he didn't come to destroy the law. He didn't come to make a new law. He came to fulfill the law that was already in place. And so there's a perfect connection between what he did and what we just got finished looking at over here. And, those two things, have to be kept in their proper places. And so when we understand what it is that Y'shua did in the context, he's giving a having a teaching moment with his disciples, showing them what he is about to do for mankind with his sacrifice, with his redemptive work that he's about to do, with shedding of his blood, being the Lamb of Elohim. And just like we see what the Most High did with Israel in Egypt, in terms of taking Israel out of Egypt and making that distinction between Egypt and Israel by the blood of the Lamb, that same distinction is made with us from Mitzrayim by the blood of the Lamb of Elohim, who is Y'shua. And he's working these things in the same timeline that he worked those things originally, because he's just fulfilling the things that he initiated from the Torah. And so it makes so much sense for us to be able to look and see that Y'shua was indeed the Passover lamb. He was killed at the very same time that they was over there in the temple killing Passover lambs and getting ready to go and eat Passover meals. At the same time, he's up there dying for our freedom. He's over there fulfilling what we see over here in Exodus from a spiritual perspective, making a mockery of death because he about to raise up from the dead.